on, Frisky, come down!
Come on. Here you go, miss.
Gee, thanks, mister.
So long now.
Story structure can feel intimidating, but it is the secret sauce behind every great story. Hi, I'm Martin from Reedsy, and today we're going to be breaking down the Save the Cat beat sheet, a step-by-step guide to story structure that will hook your readers from the first page to the last. Now, Save the Cat is a system created by the American screenwriter Blake Snyder as a way to make sense of story, to try figure out why some work and some don't. Now, the name Save the Cat comes from that point in the movie, usually early on, when our flawed protagonist does something heroic to get the viewers or readers on side. For example, saving a cat. Now, there are 15 beats to the Save the Cat system, which I will walk you through using examples from popular films. Oh, why are you talking so much about movies? I thought this channel was supposed to be about writing books. Well, yes it is. Save the Cat was a system originally developed for screenwriting, but applies to just about any sort of long-form Western storytelling. And I'm using examples from popular films that everyone has seen because it's just much easier. I don't want to have to spend half this video explaining who Henry Szymanski is. So come with me, travelers, as I give you a roadmap to crafting stories that readers will devour. Beat 1. The opening image. Great stories often begin with a snapshot, the before picture of your protagonist's world. Once upon a time, there was a lonely prince who lived in a castle. This opening image gives readers a sense of the tone and stakes of your story, and provides a first impression of your main character. For example, The Hunger Games starts with a snapshot of Katniss's everyday life, living in poverty-stricken District 12, tending to her sickly mother, and providing for her baby sister. She is a survivor whose life revolves around caring for others. So think of your opening image as your story's foundation. What snapshot of your protagonist can you give before everything changes? Beat 2. Theme stated. Early on, your story should hint at its deeper meaning, its theme. What is this story actually about? Sometimes this comes in the form of a subtle moment that foreshadows your character's journey. Sometimes it is explicitly stated by the characters themselves. In Finding Nemo, the theme of the story is loss. The loss of loved ones and the fear of losing loved ones. And we're introduced to that in the very first scene when Marlin, Nemo's father, loses his wife to the wild and dangerous ocean. This initial loss and the fear of the big bad world is what drives the rest of the story. So, what's the message or question that your story will explore? Beat 3. Setup. Now, the setup is the entire first part of the story, which includes your opening image and your theme stated. This is where you'll introduce your protagonist, the world they live in, and your supporting characters. You'll also plant the seeds of the challenges that they will face later on. Now, you will have noticed that beside the name of the beat below, there is a percentage. This is an indication of where in the story this beat usually takes place. When this is used in screenwriting, they'll normally say something like, oh, this should happen on page 10. It's generally accepted that a page of script equals 1 minute on a screen, and the ideal film length is about 100 minutes. Were that only the case these days? Sticking with this Pixar theme, let's have a look at the first 10 minutes of Toy Story. That's where this entire setup beat takes place. In this stretch of time, we're introduced to all the toys in Andy's bedroom. We are taught the rules of this world. This idea that the toys come to life when nobody's watching. And we're introduced to Woody, our protagonist, whose life revolves around being Andy's favorite toy, and as a result, the leader of the other toys. So, what does your protagonist's life look like, and what's at stake if something changes? Beat number 4. The catalyst. The catalyst is the spark that sets your story in motion. It's the moment when your protagonist's ordinary life is disrupted. In Harry Potter, the catalyst is the moment when Harry finally gets his invitation to join Hogwarts. Suddenly, his muggle life living under the stairs is completely flipped upside down as he realizes that he has powers and that in the wizard world he's some sort of mega celebrity. I haven't checked, but I'll bet you 100 points to Gryffindor that the moment when Hagrid says, "Harry, you're a wizard," happens at around the 10% mark of the film and the book. So, what is the moment that flips your protagonist's world upside down? Beat number 5. Debate. The debate is the sort of span of time when your character hesitates to take action. Should they embrace the change, or should they retreat to their ordinary world? In other story models like The Hero's Journey, this is called refusal of the call. In The Matrix, Neo is being recruited by Morpheus, and even though he's given ample evidence that the world around him isn't what he's been led to believe, he isn't quite ready to take the red pill. He isn't ready to embrace the truth. So, what makes your protagonist pause before they decide to embark on the journey ahead? Beat 6. Break into two. Now, This isn't a literal moment where the character gets broken in two, haha, chuckle chuckle. This is the moment where your character makes a choice to take action after that debate. They leave their ordinary world and step into the upside world of Act 2. So we're breaking into Act 2. In Star Wars, after debating whether to join Obi-Wan to go rescue the princess, Luke Skywalker heeds the call to adventure. Though this decision was probably made in part when he goes home and discovers that his aunt and uncle had been turned into smouldering skeletons. So what is the decisive action that propels your hero into this new uncertain world? Beat 7, the B story. This is the B story, a subplot often involving the supporting character who helps our protagonist to grow. This is another one that sort of represents a stretch of story that sort of undergirds a lot of the other beats. In Rocky, the B story is our hero's blossoming relationship with Adrian, a meek wallflower and the sister of his drunken pal Paulie. Now this subplot isn't just there to appeal to folks who don't really care about watching boxing movies, it's there to reveal Rocky's insecurities and allow him to grow from the inside while his muscles take care of business on the outside. So, who or what acts as a catalyst for your hero's transformation? Beat number 8, fun and games. This is otherwise known as the promise of the premise. This is where you deliver on any sort of genre expectations or the premise of your story. If this is a romantic comedy, then this is the part where they're going on dates and learning to fall in love. If you're writing an adventure story, this is where your young protagonist is swinging from vines and having a real good time living in the world of this adventure. In Disney's Aladdin, the fun and games section is that whole bit where Aladdin is enjoying the magic of the genie and getting to live as Prince Ali, fabulous he. So for your fun and games, how does your story lean on its premise and deliver on the goods, the fun, the meat of it? Beat 9, the midpoint. The midpoint is a game changer. Stakes are raised and the story takes a serious turn. In Titanic, this is where the ship hits the iceberg. It goes from being a romance between Jack and Rose to a story about survival. He goes from painting her like his French girls to running away with her as a drenched girl. So what's the moment that raises the stakes and shifts the tone of your story? Beat 10. Bad guys close in. As the stakes climb, internal and external pressures mount. The protagonists face new challenges and setbacks. In the most recent version of A Star Is Born, there are no literal bad guys. There's no scene where ninjas storm the stage to steal a Grammy from Lady Gaga. Instead, the bad guys, as it were, live in Bradley Cooper's head. As Gaga's career starts to soar, B. Coop's alcoholism spirals out of control. His jealousy and self-destructive tendencies start to put a strain on their relationship, leading to private and public humiliations that deepen the cracks in their bond. What obstacles close in on your protagonist, threatening their success? Beat number 11, all is lost. Now this is a low point, when it feels like all hope is gone. The protagonist is defeated and the goal now feels impossible. In The Dark Knight Rises, the all is lost moment comes at the point when Bane has taken over Gotham City. He has broken Batman over his knee and he has thrown him into a literal pit, presumably where he will die slowly. We know, because this is a story, that the hero will find their way out of it at some point, but for them, this feels like this could be the end. So, what's the moment where your protagonist hits rock bottom? Beat number 12, Dark Night of the Soul. Speaking of Dark Nights, here, the protagonist reflects on their failures and contemplates giving up altogether. But this introspection leads to a new revelation, a new understanding of themselves or their mission. Almost every story has this near the end. It's the moment where our characters truly wonder whether they can in fact achieve their goal. In Moana, the title character is abandoned by Maui and loses faith in herself. She commits the heart of Te Fiti back to the ocean as a sign of her defeat, before her grandmother's spirit appears and inspires her to continue. So what truth does your protagonist uncover that inspires them to rise again? Beat 13, break into 3. Yet again, we are breaking into Act 3. With newfound clarity, our protagonist once again decides to take action. This is a moment of transformation and resolution. They can take all the lessons that they've learned from their triumphs and failures in Act 2 and synthesize them into a new plan that will take them right to the end of the story. In Mad Max Fury Road, our protagonists spend all of Act 2 running away from the Citadel and the nefarious Immortan Joe. After hitting rock bottom and realizing that their goal, this mythical green place, doesn't exist, they make the decision to turn around, drive back to the Citadel, and face their enemy head on. What realization drives your protagonist into the final act? Beat 14, finale. The finale is where your protagonist puts their growth into action, conquers their challenges, and resolves the story's central conflict. In Star Wars, Luke finally uses the Force to destroy the Death Star. Rocky finally believes himself and goes the distance against Apollo Creed. Neo finally learns to see through the Matrix and do slow motion kung fu. Is it called the finale because our heroes finally learn to do the thing they need? Maybe. Perhaps? So here's the question for you. How does your protagonist transformation lead to a satisfying conclusion? Beat 15, final image. This is the very last beat of Save the Cat, the final image, which should mirror the opening image from beat 1. This will show you how far your protagonist has come over the span of the story. In the Hunger Games, Katniss returns to District 12 no longer an obscure survivor, but a symbol of hope and rebellion. The Lion King's ending mirrors its opening, with a cub being raised on Pride Rock, but instead of being that cub, Simba has now stepped into his role as, the title character. What is the snapshot that shows your protagonist's growth? And how does that mirror or complement the first image that you presented to your readers right at the start of the story? Okay, so let's round back to those percentage points that were associated with each of the beats of the story. So I know we covered it briefly, but you still might be asking, why is it so important that the catalyst takes place at the 10% mark? And why is it important that the B story only gets introduced around the 22% mark? Seems very specific. Why are these precise page counts so important? The answer lies in pacing. Whether you're writing a short story, a novel, or a screenplay, story is all about rhythm. Hitting these beats at those suggested points ensures that your story unfolds at a rhythm that feels natural to your reader. Think of it like music. A symphony builds in movements, each with its own tempo or mood. Or think of it like a pop song that has a verse and a chorus and a verse and a middle 8 and a chorus and another chorus. We've listened to so many songs and read so many stories and watched so many narratives unfold on the screen that we know their natural rhythms. And it can feel very unnatural when a story steps out of that pattern, which might be what you're going for, but most of the time you want readers to stay in that pocket. If one section of the symphony or story or pop song drags on for too long or is cut too short, it disrupts the flow of the whole thing. And that's why you want to hit these beats on time. For new writers, I think these benchmarks are incredibly helpful. That said, these page counts, these percentage points, they're not rules, they're just guidelines. But if you're just starting out and your story isn't clicking, using these percentages as signposts can be incredibly helpful. So the next time you're plotting your story, don't ask yourself what happens next, ask yourself when should it happen. Timing, as they say, is everything. So what do you think of the Save the Cat page counts? Would you try them on for size, or do you think they should get up a tree and stay there? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more great content from Reedsy. And remember, structure isn't a cage, it's a framework. And once you've mastered it, you'll have the freedom to bend or break it in ways that will best serve your story. I'll see you next time.